Hello, Year 6. This is Lesson 7 on Tuesday, the 9th of February, where you are writing a letter in role. Now, remember, you're going to be writing a letter as the man to your wife, or if you've chosen a family member, them. But they're back at home as you sit in the trenches after your comrade has died in your arms. Now, just to give you a bit more information now, just to remind you that our purpose of writing today is to explain back to the people at home who love you what your life is like in the trenches and how much you care for them. So your audience is your loved one at home, and you're going to do this in the form of a letter. So today, you are going to be writing and editing your first paragraph. So let's move on. I'll just move myself up a little bit so I can get to my taskbar. There we go. Now, yesterday you should have all received a blank copy of this in with your email. And this is going to be your checklist for your writing that you are going to use throughout your writing to make sure that you are getting everything in that you need to do. Now, it's up to you to fill this in yourself. I have started you off, and let me take you through step by step about what my way of thinking is for this one. So I'm thinking about the effect. And in order to think about the effect on the reader, I need to think about who the reader is in this particular case. And the reader in this case is my wife, because I'm writing in role. So the reader is the wife. And how do I want her to feel? Well, I want her to feel informed about life in trenches. I want her to feel about life informed about life in the trenches, and know how much I love her. Okay, so I'm just going to reduce that down so you can see that. It doesn't get in the way of everything. Okay, so that is the effect that I want to create. So I'll leave now up to you, now that I've said that I'm informing my wife about life in the trenches and how much I love her throughout this piece of writing. I'll let you decide what the purpose is of this one. Are we entertaining? Are we informing? Are we persuading? Are we discussing? Up to you to decide what you put in there. But I've given you some big clues already. So what I've put in there. Okay, so I want my wife to feel reassured that I love her. I want her to feel loved. And I also want her to be quite shocked at what my life's like. And you know from the research that you've already done last Friday how horrible it is actually fighting and living in the trenches in World War I. Now, the language that you are going to use, I've sort of split my language up on this sheet to actually show the difference. I've got up at the top, I've got language that shows affection, and I've got language here that shows suffering. Now, remember yesterday we went through and we annotated the waggles so that you could identify words or phrases that showed affection and suffering. If I was you, I'd put those around here now, plus any other language that you particularly liked that you would like to use in your writing. And then here in the grammar section, now, again, last week, we looked at using sentence openers, and we practiced using those within our description of the old man sitting at the piano. And we also talked about using detailed description, using the techniques that we practiced last week. So I put here, I must use a variety of sentence openers, ing words, ed words, fronted adverbials, or start with a subordinating conjunction. You all practiced that last week, so you should all remember how to do that and look back at your notes and the help sheets that I gave you. Correct use of tense in the correct paragraphs. You are going to be working in past tense, and I'm going to talk a bit more about tense and how you move from present tense to past tense when we come to those paragraphs that you need to shift from one to the other. You are going to use precise vocabulary, and remember to use colons for sentence expansion, and you're going to use a variety of sentence lengths, spelled incorrectly there. Let's just correct that, or it'll will annoy me all the time. You're going to use a variety of sentence lengths. So you are going to use simple sentences, compound sentences, and you're going to use complex sentences to give you that detailed description. Of course, there'll be many other things that you can add around here, but I've just given you a starting point. But this is your checklist for your writing. When you've used something, you should be going back to this and ticking it off. Okay, so why don't you stop the video now, take some time to fill in your own checklist for your writing, and then when you've completed it fully, then I suggest you move on. So let's remind yourself here. What was it like living and fighting in the trenches? Go back to the research that you did on Friday. I've reposted the link up here for you, and I've also included it in your pack. So if you haven't got the link saved, you will have a copy that you can go back to. The knowledge organizer might help you here as well, but make a note of what you hear and add them to the vocabulary section of the grid. So stop this video now and go back and watch what trench life in World War I was like. Okay, year 6, so now you have restarted this video and you should have a bank of words and phrases of information that you got from this video. And hopefully you will have had something like this. What's happening into here as well? Going over the top was the most dreaded fear. In constant fear of snipers, there was lice everywhere, rats the size of cats infested the trenches. We're so far away from home. The trenches smell and are full of water. Conditions were terrible and men were shell-shocked. They're just a few of the phrases that I picked up just watching that video. I'm sure you've got loads more, but these phrases will come in very handy when you do your writing, not just in this first paragraph, but in the second paragraph as well, when you expand on what it was like living in the trenches. Okay, so let's look at the first paragraph. Now read it to you. My dearest Mary, I hope you are keeping well. It feels like a lifetime since I laid eyes on you and felt your warmth. Things seem to be unraveling out here. The trenches we built have become sodden from the rain. They are now huge valleys of mud, stone, and water that soak into our socks within minutes of us standing up. We are all exhausted and waiting for an end to this hell. I long for a decent meal. The tins of food we receive are stone cold, and we often have to eat with our fingers, our dirty fingers. Okay, that is my work on my first paragraph. Now I've done for you a structure strip. If you follow this structure strip, then you will have a really good first paragraph. So you've got to show your affection and feelings for the person at home. Now remember, you've already identified these when you annotated the waggle. So all you've got to do is go back and look at that work, and then you've got the words that you need to use. And here you can see that I have done that. My dearest Mary, I hope you are well. It feels like a lifetime. Okay, I've done that. Show that it has been some time since you have seen. Oh, it feels like a lifetime. I've done that. Okay. Share what your life was like in the trenches. I'm going to go for a different color here. So, oh, and I don't want to do that, do I? Yeah. So let me just show what our life was like. So, oh, things seem to be unraveling. Disorganized, chaos. The trenches have become sodden from the rain. Okay, we are all exhausted. Remember, we did this yesterday, so you will have all this. So, show that it has been some time since you've seen your loved one at home. It feels like a lifetime. I've done that. Share what your life has been like in the trenches. I've done that. And you're talking about things that are happening now. So you're in the present tense. Okay, present tense for this paragraph. You're talking as it's happening. Now, I've put a note here. Language choice in your description is important here. Remember how to add description. We practiced that last week. So apply what you practiced last week. Now, I'm going to show you some techniques that I'm sure you remember because we have done them in the past. And it is up to you to decide which of the techniques you use. You know which ones you've used in class. that have helped you. And I would be expecting you to use those techniques for this first paragraph. So the first one, we do our mimic. Now remember, if you mimic a style of writing and follow the sentence structure, so simple sentence, a more complex sentence here, and then things seem to be unraveling back to a simple sentence, follow that structure, but also use some of the words or change them. So instead of my dearest Mary, it could be my precious Mary. Instead of Mary, it could be Ava, or it could be Ethel, or whoever you want. It feels like an eternity. Things seem to be falling apart, going from bad to worse. Start to change things slightly, but follow the structure. And then that will give you something to hang your words on. Alternatively, you could go for change. Now let's cover this one up. So you can't see this one. Pull it down a little bit. But actually, take that one away because I do need that one. And this is where not only do you mimic the structure, but you change the order of the sentences. So I've changed the name. My beloved Ava. So I've changed the word and I've changed the name. So I've mimicked, but I've changed it. And then I've said, it seems like an eternity since I felt your warmth and heard your voice. This is this sentence here, but I've changed it. Then it's falling apart out here. We are all tired to the bone. So here I put things seem to be unraveling out here. That one matches that one. And I've added, we are tired to the bone. Oh, and this is this one here, the green bit here. And we're desperate for this torment to end. And we are waiting for an end to this hell. So here, I've just changed the order of the sentence. Instead of putting it lower down, in this, as I have in this paragraph, I put it further up. Then, here where I talk about the trenches becoming huge valleys of mud and stone and water, I put the rain has turned the trenches into huge canyons of mud. That's just space there. Stone and water, which saturates our clothes within minutes. So the same structure, the same subject, but I've changed the words. If we had decent food to eat, it would make things more bearable, but it's stone cold and we have to eat it with our bare hands. Again, I kept the structure the same message, but different words. And then I've changed this. So just move. See if I can move this up. Sorry, a 6. I wasn't anticipating on that getting in the way. See if I can just move this up a little. There we go. So, Ava, don't worry about me. You know I'll do whatever it takes to survive. So I've signed off slightly differently. And I've done the contrast from here. I hope you're keeping well. Instead of hoping keeping well, I've just said, don't worry about me. So I've changed it on its head. Oh. Sorry, a 6. That didn't need to pop up. I've got rid of it now, though. So you know where you are in class. You can either mimic or you can change. Or some of you are doing this. You're reading the waggle. You are then covering the waggle up and summarizing the gist of it. Now, this here really gives you the gist of the paragraph. So you are writing, remembering what the waggle was like, but not referring back to it. So you've had your example. You may have picked out a few of the words or phrases that you like and jotted them down onto your planning grid, your checklist, and decided that you want to use them. But you are writing here, you are creating from scratch. So you know, year 6, whether you are at mimic, change, or create stage. I'll leave that up to you to decide. But whatever you do, keep referring back to your checklist to make sure that you've got everything you need. And this here really should be your Bible. You should be following this. And if you follow this and do each one of these steps, you'll have a lovely first paragraph. So over to you now, year 6. You need to create that first paragraph. So you may want to pause the video till you have this in front of you. Or if you are doing the mimic change, this page in front of you. So year 6, when you have finished your paragraph, I want you to apply the editing 1 approach. Now remember, you practice that in the last piece of writing in Pompeii. So you start from the bottom right-hand corner and you work backwards to check your spelling. And then you start again from the top to say, does it make sense? Is your punctuation in the right place? And then when you have done that, I would like you to do editing 2. Is there anything you can add? Is there anything you can take away and replace it with something better? Or just have you given too much information and rambled, in which case is there anything you can take away? Finally, I want you to read it out loud to yourself. So off you go now and do editing 1 and editing 2. This should take you at least 15 minutes, year 6. So moving on now, is going on to the next lesson. Once you have done that and you've edited 1 and done editing 2, I would like you then to finish your lesson. So year 6, remember to send in your first paragraph to your class teacher at the end of today. And that brings us to the end of our lesson.